I do not believe the world is ending, but it's fun to pretend, right? We have a bunch of stories recently that are actually kind of freaky that many people think show us the world is ending. It's probably not ending. I mean, probably in the sense that like 99.9999% likelihood it's not ending. But these stories are still fascinating. The first story, Krakatoa volcano, Anak Krakatau, erupts in Indonesia. The famous Krakatoa, which erupted in 1883 and was so loud it was heard 2,000 miles away, has erupted again. Could this be a foreshock to a greater explosion that will be heard around the world? Probably not. Still a fun story. But we've also got, there was an earthquake in Idaho really close to Yellowstone. So people are freaking out thinking that Yellowstone's going to erupt. A series of earthquakes around the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is normal. But also, Chernobyl is on fire. Raging forest infernos in Chernobyl exclusion zone burning for 8 days are now close to exploded nuclear reactor. Oh no. And China urges authorities to prepare for possible locust invasion. That's right. A plague of locusts are swarming around the Egypt and making its way towards China. Could these be signs of the apocalypse? Probably not. I'll tell you what's really going on. Look, some things are happening, like Krakatoa exploded. That's interesting. I think we're just bored. Our news cycle is normally dominated by very specific things and very specific beats. I mean, look, I often talk about cultural issues in politics. Here I am talking about the end of the world because people are running out of things to do and talk about because there's nothing going on. So for a lot of people, they're sitting at home, celebrities are going crazy, and there's very little celebrity gossip. Yes, we can rag on them for being insane. What ends up happening then is these stories, which are normal, and we see them in the news all the time, but they're not something that people typically focus on, end up coming to the forefront. Now, I think it's fair to point out locust invasion, interesting, and earthquakes. All of these things are interesting, but I'd be willing to bet that if it was any other month outside of this global pandemic, these things would have happened and people would have been like, oh yeah, I didn't notice. Now, if you're somebody who's hyper-focused on the weird goings on in the world and you're looking for signs of the apocalypse, then yeah, maybe you'd find something. Let's read through a little bit of these. Let's start with what's going on with Krakatoa, just because it's cool. This is from NZ Herald. They report, the world-famous Krakatoa volcano, Anak Krakatau, has erupted in Indonesia with a fountain of lava and a huge plume of smoke and ash. There are reports of a large magmatic eruption happening right now at the volcano island. Satellite imagery shows ash several kilometers into the air and a plume as high as 15 kilometers. The webcam on Anak Krakatau Island shows lava erupting from the volcano. This seems to be the strongest eruptive phase since the violent phreatomagmatic activity following the partial collapse of the volcano on 22 December 2018, which had triggered a deadly tsunami that killed hundreds of people on Java's west coast. After that eruption, scientists said the volcano island was reduced to about a quarter of its pre-eruption size. See, that's actually a really good point. There was a major event that happened a couple of years ago. Nobody talked about it. I mean, at least I didn't. Maybe some of you guys knew about it, but not me. Here I am reading about it. AP reported at the time that Krakatoa had a volume of 40 to 70 million cubic meters and lost about 150 to 180 million cubic meters of volume since the 2018 eruption and tsunami, according to Indonesia's Center for Volcanology and Geological Disaster Mitigation. So I think we get the point. I'm going to wrap this up here and just jump to the next big story. For those of you who aren't familiar, Krakatoa is famous for the 1883 eruption, where it was actually heard, it was heard 3,000 miles away. Whoa, I was wrong. The eruption was one of the deadliest and most destructive volcanic events in recorded history. And explosions were so violent they were heard, 1,930 miles away in Perth, and 3,000, and Rodriguez near Mauritius, 3,000 miles away. At least 36,417 deaths are attributed to the eruption and the tsunamis it created. We have the plague of locusts, but I want to read about Chernobyl. So this is just another, gathering of stories. I don't know, it's Sunday. I felt like it'd be fun to read these things. Now, what's going on in Chernobyl is actually really serious. This is not a sign of the apocalypse. It's just like, look, Krakatoa blowing up, locusts and earthquakes, that'll freak people out. Chernobyl is man-made. This is a man-made disaster, and this is a real disaster. If this fire gets to the reactor, we could see some probably very awful things as radiation and radioactive particles get launched in the air. The Daily Mail says, wildfires burning through radioactive forests in the Chernobyl exclusion zone are getting ever closer to the exploded nuclear reactor. Firefighters are rushing to build fire breaks around the sarcophagus covering the ruined plant in Ukraine amid swirling winds. There are fears that flames could reach abandoned trucks and other vehicles contaminated from the disastrous 1986 explosion. An extraordinary video from firefighter Andrei Kukib shows an emergency vehicle driving through the raging fire and smoke laying waste to the polluted dead zone. Fires have been blazing for 9 days in the almost uninhabited 1,000 square mile exclusion zone surrounding the disused plants. Check out these photos. They say it's burning through the exclusion zone. Chernobyl exploded in 1986. We can see this is a state agency for management of the exclusion zone has ordered in 3 Antonov planes and 2 Mi-8 helicopters, which have airdropped 250 tons of water. On Tuesday, the fire covered some 87 acres, having tripled in size due to strong winds, the emergency service said in a statement. There are fears of radiation in the ground unleashed by the infernos. There's fears that the radiation can reach Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, and other populated areas. This could be worse if the flames reach the Chernobyl reactors. Katerina Pavlova, a senior official involved in the firefighting, said, "We have been working all night digging fire breaks around the plant to protect it from fire." She told the New York Times, "At the moment, we cannot say the fire is contained. More than 300 people and 85 pieces of equipment have been deployed daily in the fight to extinguish the flames, which come as Ukraine, one of Europe's poorest countries, is also battling against the coronavirus." We can see this photo of firefighters taking a nap sleeping. The state agency for management of the exclusion zone, which Pavlova heads, has ordered the 3 Antonov planes, AN-32P, and 2 helicopters, which have airdropped more than 250 tons of water in the wildfires. Police say the blaze broke out after a man set fire to dry grass near the exclusion zone. The man was detained by Ukrainian police. Authorities rejected the warnings of the acting head of the country's state ecological inspection service, Yehov Fursov, who withdrew remarks made this week that radioactivity is higher than normal at the heart of the blaze. Initially covered up by the USSR, the 1986 explosion sent radioactive fallout across Europe, exposing millions to dangerous levels of radiation. I'll tell you what, man, it's not just Ukraine that's at risk. It's Europe that's at risk. I wonder if there's going to be, I wonder how often this stuff happens and we really don't pay attention, because I'm willing to bet it does. And I'm wondering how often this stuff does happen and we overhype non-events, like claiming that they're actually worse than they are. There was that big thing recently, a year or two ago, about the Amazon fires, and it turned out to be a normal farming season in the Amazon where they burn, crops. They made it seem like the whole Amazon rainforest was on fire for whatever reason. Look at these photos. People are not allowed to live within 18 miles of the power station, which is some 62 miles north of Ukraine's capital city, Kiev. The 3 other reactors at Chernobyl continue to generate electricity until the power station fully closed in 2000. What? I did not know that. Wow. A giant protective dome was put in place over the 4th reactor in 2016. Fires occur regularly in the forest near the Chernobyl power plant. You see, there it is. You know what, man? I feel like I kind of let you down. It turns out these fires are actually normal, but once again, we're all bored. So is the world ending? Are the plagues coming for us? It doesn't seem likely. These are scary stories. March 1st, we heard that China was preparing for an invasion of locusts. That's one of the biblical plagues, isn't it? I'm not entirely convinced. I think that what we're seeing with this global pandemic is, a lot of people act like it's overhyped. I don't think it is. I think they're downplaying it a little bit. I think some aspects of it are overhyped and some are downplayed for sure. But because there's no big news cycle, if there's not people doing things, there's nothing to report, unless, of course, you want to report on natural events, which is what we're seeing. Fires, volcanoes, locusts. I'm not surprised locusts are going to start kicking up. I'm pretty sure there were stories about we've seen it with rats. I don't know if you saw the segment we did on rats. But rats and other animals, probably pigeons, are coming out looking for food. Monkeys in Thailand. Because humans aren't out doing things, nothing is going on. Nature is kind of playing its course. You know what I mean? So rats in New York are coming out. Rats in New Orleans are coming out. And monkeys in Thailand are running around forming gangs and fighting for food. Locusts are probably going to get way worse because humans aren't out doing things, opening the door for invasive species to start reclaiming territory that humans normally occupy. They say China could face a desert locust invasion. A government body warned on Monday, urging local authorities to prepare for the possible arrival of voracious insects from neighboring Pakistan and India. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Why not put up big nets, catch them all, crush them up, turn them into food? Hey, how about that? Turn a negative into a positive. Now, I'll tell you what. Natural events like this occur probably all the time. And because humans are very human centric, we'd rather talk about Donald Trump. Let's be honest. While Donald Trump is doing his thing, we're still talking about him. Many other celebrities and politicians aren't. Celebrities are doing stupid things and sounding like morons. And I ragged on them recently trying to, talk about something. But admittedly, the longer we're under lockdown, the less there is going on, the less there is to talk about. We're going to start highlighting things we normally don't. Maybe that'll be a good thing because you'll get some environmentalists out of it who want to protect the planet. Maybe it'll be a bad thing because we'll overhype things that normally don't matter and then everyone will think the world is ending. Either way, there you go. Some end of the world stories for you. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you then.